Hello, everyone. This is Roopa Sunku, bringing you yet another episode of Mentor Loop. Today, the topic that I'd like to discuss with you and give you my perspective on is influence. Why is influence so important in workplace, and what do you have to look out for and consider to be able to influence the folks around you? So influence is a very powerful and effective way to help change the organization, introduce new ideas, and grow the organization to be both in the professional space as well as your own personal life. No matter who you are, where you work, or what you do on your professional goals, or how do you achieve those goals, influence is so important and critical for the success of being effective and, more importantly, respected. To be in an effective organization today, you must be able to influence people. The title alone doesn't allow you to sway people's minds or get them motivated or persevere to get those lofty goals accomplished. So influence and a person of influence doesn't have to have a formal position, but the informal leader who position things and creates those results through influence is somebody who is sought after. How do you motivate people around you and support and adopt your initiatives and ideas is what influence is all about. You can be a go-to person or be a person that can be an expert where guidance is called on, but to influence, you have to think about these various elements. First is to build connections. Build that connection so that you can in turn build that trust. Once you have established that connection and trust, then it's easy to share ideas and be transparent to get effective suggestions and also taken in the adoption of the idea is simpler. And you can do this by having worked with these people for many years or people whom you have worked with on short interim projects or have known personally. But you build those relationships and they trust you for what you're bringing to the table. Your authenticity is definitely known to them, and they also value what you have done and what you have achieved through that connection. Cultivate a very reliable and thorough, consistent message. If you go in with inconsistencies in the ability to deliver faster, your reputation can be marred. So consistency on the task and the execution plans and your perspectives is super important to be able to establish that influence. They begin to build and trust you, and hearing that message constantly and consistently shows your execution style and your passion around your end point or your end goal itself. It's also important to be assertive because when you're trying to influence, you're, as I mentioned, trying to have a change management or introduce a new difficult concept that may not be seen with the same perspective that you're driving with. So it's important to be assertive to dictate that focus and also the ability and maturity of your assessment to come out. But that does not mean you get aggressive. Just like we talked about, positions don't allow that influence, but it's the informal style of leadership that you build that can actually do it. So similarly, be assertive, but the assertiveness should not get to become arrogance or aggressive, and that people will move away or go away from. The next one is to be flexible. As much as you would like to influence them, there are a lot of opinions and perspectives that they bring to the table as colleagues or co-workers. So not only do you have to listen to them patiently and understand their perspective, timing, effectiveness, all of this should be played in and indicate and show and demonstrate your flexibility. And then slowly but surely that trust relationship is building doing, and the influence becomes easier for you to be able to execute on. Be very personal. As I mentioned to you earlier, it can be both personal goals or professional goals. So make those professional goals your personal passions and your personal milestones or your personal influences. And that will allow you to build the influence in the workplace. If somebody says, "Oh, I love the color pink," and that's all I got to say to it, that doesn't show that personal attachment. But instead, if you were to say, "The color pink is so pretty. The roses in my garden represent the color that I appreciate. And it's the color of love. It's the color of calmness. It's the color that allows me to relate to it." Those are all the things that will kind of make people realize how personal this is to you. And that again allows you to influence people because you're drawing them into the simplicity of the message and the flexibility that you're showing with the personal attachment that you are making with it. Focus on actions rather than the discussions, right? There are a lot of people who will go back and forth, will say, "Do you really think this is the way to do it?" Or if you are presenting the ideas, they say the use of words that you have put in or the tone that you have utilized is not really bringing me into this idea. And then you need to just kind of go and hone in on focusing on the action at hand and not worry about the loose discussions that may not be imperative or not be almost a detriment to that influence that you want to share. I just recently saw this movie called Marry Me. And in that movie, it is a math Olympics. And the kids were struggling with the pressure of being on stage and being able to answer the questions for the math problems given to them. And Jennifer Lopez is the actress in the movie, turns around and says, "You know what? I'm a big music star. I like to sing, but I still to date get nervous. And how do I offset that?" She says, "I dance to the tune and focus my eyes and energy on my legs and hand movements. So I kind of stay away and keep away from the audience judging me or making impressions or suggesting me to get nervous at that point." So again, going back to the idea of influence, focus on the action and don't worry about the side elements that may distract you. It's also super important to listen to people, listening to them, because before you persuade them to buy your idea, understand your idea, and live your idea, you need to be able to persuade them. And that's why I talked about the color pink. It's just not about saying, "I like pink," but to also add other elements, other tactile, visual, auditory, or the fragrances that can actually associate and make you persuade them because you have listened to what they're saying and why they're saying what they're saying. The other important piece to all of this is you have to be an expert. So if you are taking an idea and running with it or making a change in any environment, you need to know enough about that subject to be able to kind of ward off the naysayers to a certain extent, but more importantly, can give the relevant facts and details or history or progressions of that particular idea to show your expertise, and then builds in the trust, the reliability, and so forth that already help you establish that influence. Also, map your strategy. And though I haven't put this as one of the primary elements, it's important to have a strategy, a fallback plan. If one influence doesn't work, what kind of second strategy or turnarounds you're going to be able to bring in is also critical for you to consider. So map your strategy, but don't get drawn into the logistical details or the administrative aspects of the strategy alone, but make this all personable. Be that expert, be that listener, be flexible, understand other people's focus, draw in and hone in on the focus with being assertive and creating that trust circle to be able to influence the people. To create this kind of an atmosphere of influence with all the 9 topics or points that I shared with you, it's all about creating that atmosphere, the ecosystem, the environment to create that mutual trust, mutual respect, and mutual teamwork. If you are spearheading any initiatives to build it into the environment or the ecosystem, you will have to see it from the leader's eyes, the player's eyes, the people that are participating in this change or this particular activity. And it's also important to know and gather and keep a pulse on what is it people are thinking of you leading this change. And some of these changes are very, very large. So break them down to smaller strategies and smaller achievable goals so that you can get that respect, get those results, and then you can have more oomph or the power to go ahead and march on further. Influence is a very extraordinary asset in the professional world. But remember, your goal here is to become more respected in the workplace by increasing the likelihood of others being able to talk to you and understand what you're bringing to the table, and not be something of a bidding match, but more of what do you do together and bring them along and sway them to understand your perspective and make that change is very critical. One is a respectful journey to become prominent in the organization and productive in the organization, while the other one is simply the ability to influence and bring people together and make this a very cohesive and easy change management kind of an org. With that, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Adam Grant. He says, "Striving to be the best is a mistake." And you may wonder why. It creates an illusion of an endpoint. It also is a delusion that you can only succeed by beating others. But like influence, he says, striving to be better shifts the focus from victory to mastery. You're competing with your own past self and raising the bar for the future self. And you can do all of that by remembering to create those connections, building the trust, creating a reliable, consistent environment. Be assertive but not aggressive. Be flexible. Be personable. Focus on the action rather than the discussions. Listen and persuade through your listening and personal ability skills. And then be that expert to be able to look at all of the pros and the cons to each and every discussion that happens, and definitely have a strategy or a map in the background so that it doesn't derail you completely and you're able to bring back things together to create that influence and a much more powerful impact to your organization. I'm very thankful for all of you listening to this episode. And if you would like to be part of touchalife.org and look us up, please do visit me at touchalife.org/career help and join us in making a difference to the people around you who will need and utilize the help of the experiences that you each bring to the table. Thank you, and hope all's well.